You're a big motorcycle enthusiast. You just picked up another.
Been for years. Actually, I always love it when somebody will say, "Is this your first race or whatnot?" I was actually the very first race. It was an exhibition race, about 1967 or 8.
Most fans remember Barry Weiss as the fearless, eccentric treasure hunter who strutted into dusty storage lockers with sunglasses, swagger, and a grin that suggested he knew something the rest of the cast didn't. He was the mystery of storage wars, the man who didn't seem to need the money, didn't care about the competition, and always seemed to be having more fun than everyone else. But behind the cool cars, the jokes, and the laid-back charm was a truth far darker than anyone imagined. Because after the cameras stopped rolling and his fame reached its peak, Barry's life took a turn that would leave even his closest friends stunned. What happened to the legendary collector when the spotlight finally dimmed? And why did everything fall apart so fast? The legend behind the sunglasses. Before the world knew him as the collector, Barry Weiss was already something of a myth in Southern California. He wasn't a TV star, and he wasn't chasing fame. He was simply a man obsessed with history, antiques, and the thrill of finding something truly rare. For decades, Barry had been quietly building a fortune through the produce business, then using that fortune to indulge in a hobby most people could only dream about: collecting. Classic cars, bizarre artifacts, priceless oddities. Barry had them all. His warehouse was legendary long before storage wars ever existed. But when the show launched in 2010, Barry became an instant fan favorite. Not because he was the richest, or the best bidder, or the toughest competitor, but because he was the only one who didn't seem to take the storage auction seriously at all. He joked, he wandered off, he bought lockers for fun, rather than profit. And yet, behind every laugh and every ridiculous entrance, there was a man hiding something. A loneliness, a sense of drifting, and a desire for meaning that no one watching at home could see. Why was Barry on the show in the first place? And what was the one thing he never told the cameras about his past? Fame arrived, and so did the downfall. As storage wars exploded into a cultural phenomenon, Barry Weiss unexpectedly became its brightest star. Fans loved him. Producers needed him. His popularity soared so quickly that the network begged him to stay, offering spin-off opportunities, special episodes, anything that would keep Barry on the screen. But fame came with pressures he never wanted. Suddenly, crews followed him everywhere. His private world, his cars, his collections, his quiet life, was no longer his. And then something shifted. Barry began pulling back. He filmed less, traveled less, and trusted fewer people. The attention that once felt amusing began to feel suffocating. Friends noticed he wasn't laughing quite as loudly. His family noticed he wasn't showing up as often. And the producers? They noticed something even worse. Barry might be ready to walk away from the empire he helped create. But what pushed him to the breaking point? And why did Barry suddenly disappear without warning, leaving fans wondering if something terrible had happened? When Barry left Storage Wars, it wasn't with a press conference or a dramatic farewell. He didn't announce a retirement or offer a heartfelt explanation. He simply stopped showing up. One day, he was the soul of the show, and the next, he was gone. Fans were confused, cast members were stunned, and even network executives weren't entirely sure what had pushed him out the door. But Barry had been wrestling with something quietly. Something he kept hidden behind every sunglasses-wearing smirk. After years of being the carefree icon on screen, he found himself exhausted. Fame had taken a toll he never expected. The pressure, the expectations, the constant need to be Barry Weiss instead of just Barry, it was wearing him down. But the deeper reason for his disappearance was rooted in something far more personal. As the show grew, Barry's private life began to shrink. He'd always been a man who enjoyed solitude, reflection, slow mornings, and long drives in one of his classic cars. Yet the more popular he became, the less of that he had left. He couldn't walk through Los Angeles without being stopped. He couldn't grab lunch without people snapping pictures. The spontaneity, the freedom that had defined his life for decades was suddenly gone. And for Barry, freedom mattered more than fame ever could. So he made a choice most celebrities don't. He walked away at the height of his popularity. He didn't fight the network, didn't negotiate, didn't argue. He simply left. But for a man who had spent years laughing at the chaos around him, something far heavier must have been pulling him away. Because shortly after his departure, Barry began withdrawing from public life entirely. No appearances, no interviews, no social media. The world that once couldn't get enough of him suddenly had to face an uncomfortable truth. Barry Weiss didn't just leave the show. He vanished from the spotlight completely. But what exactly was he running from? And what tragic twist of fate would soon force him back into the public eye? The accident that changed everything. For months, rumors swirled about what happened to Barry. Some believed he was secretly filming a new project. Others thought he was ill. A few assumed he simply wanted time alone. But the truth emerged in the most shocking way possible. Barry Weiss was involved in a catastrophic motorcycle accident that nearly took his life. It happened on an ordinary afternoon, one of the rare days Barry felt comfortable enough to enjoy a ride. He had always loved motorcycles. They gave him the kind of freedom that fame had stolen from him. But on this day, that freedom was shattered in an instant. A car pulled out unexpectedly, leaving Barry with no time to react. The impact was devastating. Witnesses described the scene as horrific. His bike mangled, Barry thrown violently into the street. Emergency responders arrived quickly, but the damage had already been done. Barry suffered severe internal injuries, broken bones, and trauma so intense that doctors weren't sure whether he would ever fully recover. For someone who had lived a life of adventure, risk, and spontaneity, the accident felt like the cruelest twist imaginable. The man who walked away from fame to reclaim his freedom now found himself confined to a hospital bed, fighting for his life. The recovery that followed was long, painful, and emotionally draining. Barry was no longer the buoyant reality star with endless energy. He was a man grappling with mortality. Those close to him said something changed after the accident. He became quieter, more reflective, more aware of the fragility he'd always ignored. The injuries didn't just break his body. They forced him to confront the very thing he had spent years avoiding, the reality that time, health, and independence can be taken from us at any moment. But what did this accident reveal about Barry's deepest regrets? And how did it reshape the rest of his life in ways fans never saw coming? Barry Weiss had always been the man who kept things light. Even in chaos, he cracked jokes, brushed off stress, and acted like nothing ever truly fazed him. But the accident changed that. For the first time in his life, Barry wasn't in control. He couldn't get up and walk away. He couldn't hide behind humor or cool sunglasses. He was forced to lie still, to face pain he couldn't laugh through, to confront a kind of vulnerability he had never allowed himself to feel. Doctors warned him early on, this recovery would be slow, very slow. Bones can heal, but trauma, physical and emotional, doesn't operate on a predictable timeline. There were days Barry couldn't move without help. Nights when breathing hurt, mornings when the world felt too heavy to face. And because Barry was naturally private, he shut almost everyone out. No camera crews, no castmates, no fans, just Barry, the silence of the hospital room, and the realization that the life he'd built was suddenly frozen in place. But something else happened during those long, quiet months. Barry began thinking about legacy. Not fame, not the show, not the money. Those things never mattered much to him. He wondered instead what his life had meant. Had he spent too much time being a character? Had he pushed away important relationships because he preferred independence? Had he run from pain instead of facing it? The accident didn't just injure him, it made him confront who he truly was beneath the persona millions loved on TV. Yet, as Barry tried to rebuild physically, he faced an even bigger challenge. The outside world had moved on without him. Storage Wars continued filming. New bidders joined the cast. Fans speculated endlessly online. But Barry's name became something of a myth. What really happened to him? Will he ever return? Is he okay? And because he stayed silent, the rumors grew louder. People started crafting their own stories about where he had gone and why. But none of them knew the real truth. Barry was facing the hardest question of his life. Could he ever return to the world he left behind? Or was that chapter permanently closed? And then, just when he began to regain his strength, something happened that forced Barry to reconsider everything. Something that would not only drag him back into the public eye, but also reveal a darker side of his story that fans had never seen. What event would shake Barry so deeply that even he couldn't hide from it? The return that never came. As word eventually leaked about Barry's accident, fans waited anxiously for his comeback. People assumed that once he healed, he'd rejoin Storage Wars with a grand entrance, maybe riding in on a new vintage motorcycle or pulling up in a car no one had ever seen before. After all, that was the Barry Weiss everyone remembered. Unpredictable, larger than life, charismatic, unforgettable. But behind the scenes, Barry felt torn. Physically, he was recovering. Emotionally, he wasn't. He tried to watch old episodes people sent him, hoping they'd spark a desire to return. But instead, he felt a strange disconnect. It was like watching someone else entirely. A version of himself, frozen in time. Carefree, invincible, untouched by tragedy. He realized he couldn't step back into that role because the man he used to be wasn't the man he was anymore. There were also conversations with producers. Difficult ones. They wanted him back. They knew his presence boosted ratings and fan engagement, but they also knew Barry didn't want to be treated like a sympathy storyline. He wasn't interested in redemption arcs, rise from the ashes narratives, or exploitation of his accident. Barry wanted authenticity, and reality TV rarely offers that. And so he declined. Not dramatically, not angrily, just quietly, with grace. He thanked them, told them he appreciated their support, but said he wasn't ready, and maybe never would be. It was a decision that shocked the network, but Barry had made peace with it. For him, freedom mattered more than fame. Still, walking away came with a price he didn't expect. Fans thought he was rejecting them. Some assumed he was bitter. Others believed he was hiding something darker. Financial issues, health problems, legal troubles. The internet has a way of filling in gaps with imagination. Meanwhile, Barry tried building a new life. Smaller, calmer, slower. He spent time with old friends, away from the cameras. He reconnected with family. He explored hobbies he never had time for before the show. But as peaceful as his new life was, there was always a shadow hanging over him, the unresolved weight of public expectation. People wanted answers. They wanted closure. They wanted Barry back. And then came the moment that forced Barry out of hiding, not because he wanted attention, but because he had no choice. A situation emerged that dragged his name into the spotlight again. And this time, it wasn't about his accident. It wasn't about the show. It wasn't even about his health. It was something far more personal and far more heartbreaking. What shocking revelation pulled Barry back into the headlines, even after he tried so hard to disappear? For years, Barry Weiss lived the kind of life most people only dream about. fast cars, legendary friendships, no responsibilities except enjoying himself. But that illusion shattered the moment he stepped into the hospital after the crash. Doctors spoke in low voices, using phrases that didn't match the carefree world Barry had always lived in. Punctured lung, broken chest plate, nerve damage. Words that landed like blows. The man viewers knew for his laughter was almost unrecognizable, buried beneath wires, monitors, and an expression of pain so sharp it frightened even those closest to him. His inner circle later said they were terrified not just for his body, but for his mind. Barry had always been the kind of guy who believed tomorrow would be better than today, no matter what. But in that hospital bed, for the first time in his life, that spark was fading. The surgeries came one after another. Sleep was restless. Movement was agony. And the fear that he might never again climb into one of his classic cars, never walk into a storage auction with that iconic grin, lingered like a shadow. But in the stillness of those long months, Barry found something he didn't expect. A strange clarity. A realization that he had spent so many years running from anything that resembled vulnerability. And now, lying there, stripped of everything but himself, he had no choice but to confront the truth. What mattered most in his life wasn't the cars, the collectibles, or even the fame. It was the people. And the terrifying question he wrestled with daily was simple. Would they still be there when he finally got back on his feet? Reinvention or goodbye forever? As Barry slowly regained his strength, the outside world moved on without him. Storage wars continued with new buyers. Fans speculated online, some whispering rumors that Barry would never return. Others insisted he'd surprise everyone with the comeback of the decade. But inside Barry's private rehab room, the struggle wasn't about television, it was about identity. Who was Barry Weiss without the show, without the spotlight, without the adrenaline rush of chasing treasures? These were not questions he ever thought he'd be forced to face. Barry had always seen the show as fun, a hobby, not a career. But losing it so suddenly made him realize how much purpose it had secretly given him. The joy, the banter, the people, the thrill of discovery. It was more than entertainment. It was connection. So when producers finally reached out months later, asking if he'd consider returning once he healed, Barry hesitated. Not because he couldn't, but because he wasn't sure he should. His doctors warned him. Another accident could change his life permanently. His family pleaded with him to slow down, to stop chasing danger disguised as fun. Yet something deep inside tugged at him, a desire to prove that he wasn't finished, that the crash wasn't the final chapter. But could he return without risking everything he had barely managed to rebuild? Or was walking away the only way to survive? As he stood in his garage months later, taking his first steps without assistance, he whispered to himself, "Is this the beginning or the end?" And even he didn't know the answer. The price of fame Barry never wanted. Barry Weiss had always been the outlier of storage wars. He wasn't like the others who relied on storage lockers to make a living. He didn't need the money. He wasn't chasing fame, followers, or a bigger brand. Barry was simply chasing fun, something he loved long before cameras ever came near him. But fame, even when accidental, carries a weight that slowly, silently, begins to reshape a person's life. When storage wars became a global phenomenon, Barry suddenly became something he never asked to be, a walking icon. Fans approached him on the streets. Crowds gathered at car shows, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. And for a man who valued privacy almost as much as he valued a good vintage motorcycle, this new reality was suffocating. Friends say Barry handled it with humor, brushing it off with a joke or a goofy grin. But privately, there were days when he would stay inside his house through the afternoon, just to avoid being recognized. His phone buzzed nonstop. Producers, agents, fan mail, media requests. Fame had turned his once carefree life into something he couldn't control. And when the accident happened, everything intensified. Suddenly, Barry wasn't just famous, he was vulnerable. Headlines weren't celebrating him anymore. They were dissecting him. Was he too old to be riding motorcycles? Was he reckless? Was he done for good? The world that had once adored him now picked apart every detail of his private suffering. For the first time, Barry understood something tragic. Fame gives endlessly, but it also takes without mercy. As he stared at the television one morning, watching a news segment dissect his crash as though it were entertainment, he wondered if stepping back into the spotlight was worth sacrificing what little peace he had left. Could he face a world that now saw him not as the collector king, but as a broken legend? Or was it time for Barry Weiss to disappear forever? The rising ghost of regret. During those quiet months of recovery, Barry confronted parts of his past he had spent decades trying to bury. Memories he'd always brushed aside with humor surfaced, whether he wanted them to or not. Because when you can't walk, can't work, and can barely move without assistance, the mind begins working in ways you cannot outrun. People close to Barry say he rarely talked about his regrets, but they were there, lingering like shadows behind the jokes and sunglasses. He regretted the friendships that faded over time because he was always chasing the next thrill. He regretted the relationships that collapsed because he didn't know how to slow down. He regretted that he had no family of his own to pass his treasures to, no children to teach, no legacy to guide. Behind the cameras, Barry often wondered what his life might have been if he had chosen differently. But the show, the cars, the adventures, they filled those empty spaces just long enough for him not to notice they were still there, until the day he nearly lost his life. Now he faced a painful realization. If his life had ended on that street, the world would remember Barry Weiss, the TV star, the collector, the joke teller. But not Barry Weiss the man. The man with fears, insecurities, dreams left unfinished. The man who wondered if he spent too many years running from emotional roots he desperately wished he had planted earlier in life. The weight of that regret was heavier than any cast on his body, and it led him to the biggest question of all. What kind of future could he build now, when so much of his past felt unfinished? A return that shocked everyone. When Barry finally stepped back into the public eye after his recovery, the reaction was overwhelming. Fans cheered, shocked to see him walking, talking, cracking jokes again. Producers expected an older, slower version of him, but what they got was a man who had been rebuilt from the inside out. Barry understood something clearly now. He didn't want to return to Storage Wars to prove he was the same man he used to be. He wanted to return to show he had survived. In a world that worships strength but runs from vulnerability, Barry offered viewers something real, a reminder that humor and humanity could coexist with hardship. His comeback episodes were unlike anything he'd done before. He still teased the other buyers. He still hunted for weird treasures. But this time, there was a depth behind his eyes, a softness people weren't used to seeing. Audiences connected with him more deeply than ever. Many said it was the first time they saw the heart behind the sunglasses. But despite the cheers and the love, Barry carried one secret. He wasn't sure how long he could keep doing this. The cameras exhausted him. The long days took a toll, and the business had changed. More competition, more pressure, less fun. So privately, he wrestled with another painful decision. Should he walk away again, this time forever? The private battle no one saw. As the months passed, Barry faced a silent struggle no fan could have imagined. The injuries from his crash were healing, yes, but they were not gone. Chronic pain, stiffness, nerve issues, They became part of his daily reality. Some days, he woke up ready to film or explore the city. Other days, he had to sit still for hours before his body allowed him to move comfortably. He didn't complain. He didn't publicize it. That wasn't Barry. But behind closed doors, he knew his body was reminding him that life had changed permanently. He couldn't ride motorcycles like before. He couldn't handle heavy lifting during locker digs. He couldn't maintain the same pace that once defined his persona. Yet, what weighed on him even more was the emotional toll. The crash hadn't just injured him. It had awakened old wounds he hadn't expected to revisit. Questions about aging, questions about legacy, questions about whether he had wasted too much time avoiding emotional risks while chasing physical ones. He feared becoming a version of himself he didn't recognize. A man who stayed on television simply because he didn't know what else to do. That was never who he wanted to be. Barry wanted freedom, but freedom required letting go. And letting go, for the first time in his life, terrified him. The final truth: Barry could no longer hide. As Barry Weiss approached what many believed would be his final year in the public eye, whispers grew louder. Fans noticed his appearances becoming less frequent. Interviewers noticed his pauses becoming longer. Even his closest friends sensed a shift, a heaviness in him, but also a clarity, as though he had finally reached an answer he had been avoiding for years. And then, quietly, without ceremony, Barry revealed the truth he had carried alone for far too long. He didn't want to be famous anymore. He didn't want cameras following him around. He didn't want producers calling him at all hours. He didn't want to wear the sunglasses like armor every time he stepped into the world. Barry wanted peace, real peace, the kind that doesn't ask for a performance, the kind that doesn't demand entertainment, the kind that allows a man to sit with his memories, good and bad, and finally feel whole. He admitted that for years, he used humor to hide the loneliness that came with being a private man living a very public life. The show filled his days, but not always his heart. The adventures filled his time, but not always his spirit. And the accident. Well, that accident had forced him to finally face himself. Barry realized he didn't owe the world anything anymore. He had given them joy, jokes, mystery, and unforgettable TV moments. He had been real in ways many reality stars never dared to be. And he had survived more, physically and emotionally, than most viewers could imagine. So he made the decision that stunned fans, producers, and even fellow cast members. Barry Weiss was stepping away. Not because he was broken, not because he couldn't keep going, but because for the first time in his life, he wanted to choose himself. He wanted to live quietly. He wanted to spend time with the few people who truly knew him. He wanted to wake up without a script, without a schedule, without a lens pointed at him. Barry didn't disappear out of weakness. He walked away out of strength. And as he drove off in one of his beloved classic cars, a slow, peaceful drive instead of the wild rides of his past, it became clear. This wasn't the end of Barry Weiss. It was the beginning of the life he had always deserved. Barry Weiss's story is not a story of tragedy. It is a story of transformation. He entered Storage Wars as a mystery, a wild card, a man who seemed larger than life. But he left as something far more meaningful. A reminder that behind every laugh, behind every eccentric habit, behind every TV persona, there is a human being trying to find their place in the world. Barry inspired millions not because he was perfect, but because he wasn't afraid to be imperfect. He didn't hide his quirks. He didn't pretend to be something he wasn't. And even when life forced him into moments of darkness, he faced them with honesty. And eventually, with courage. Today, Barry lives life on his own terms, away from the noise, away from the spotlight, but never forgotten. His legacy lives in the laughter he gave viewers, the unpredictability he brought to the show, and the reminder that fame is not worth sacrificing your soul. And maybe that's the lesson we all needed, that stepping away isn't failure. Sometimes it's healing. Sometimes it's survival. Sometimes it's the bravest thing a person can do. If Barry Weiss taught us anything, it's this: life isn't about the treasures you find in storage lockers. It's about the treasures you find within yourself. Thank you for watching. If this video moved you, inspired you, or showed you a side of Barry Weiss you never knew, make sure to like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments which Storage Wars legend you want us to cover next. Until then, take care of yourselves and take care of each other.